The northern wind bit at Kára Leifsdottir's face as she stood at the prow of her father's ship, her red hair whipping around her like flames against the grey sky. The other warriors huddled below deck, seeking shelter from the biting cold, but Kára preferred to face the elements head-on. At 19, she was the only shield maiden among her father's crew, and she had learned early that showing weakness invited doubt. "Land ahead," called the lookout, and Kára's heart quickened. The coast of Northumbria rose before them, shrouded in morning mist. This would be her third raid, but the first where her father had promised she would lead a contingent of warriors. She had spent years proving herself worthy of such trust, training with sword and axe until her hands blistered and bled, studying strategy with the clan's elders, and demonstrating her courage in previous battles. "Are you ready, daughter?" Leif Thorkelson appeared beside her, his massive frame blocking the wind. Though approaching 50 winters, he remained one of the fiercest warriors in their village. "I was born ready, father," she replied, adjusting the shield strap to her back. "I will make you proud today." Her father's weathered face creased with a rare smile. "You already have." He gazed toward the shore. "Remember, we target the monastery at Lindisfarne. Their gold will see us through a comfortable winter, and their manuscripts will please Jarl Hakon." Kára nodded, though a familiar unease stirred within her. She had never questioned the raids before, it was their way of life, sanctioned by the gods themselves. Yet something about attacking those who would not or could not fight back left a bitter taste in her mouth. "Is something troubling you?" her father asked, eyes narrowing. "No," she lied, straightening her back. "My thoughts are clear as spring water." "Good. The warriors respect you, but some still question whether a woman should lead men into battle. Do not give them reason to doubt." As the longship glided toward shore, Kára watched the coastline grow closer. She would prove herself today, silence any whispers of inadequacy. That was the only path forward for a woman in her world. The raid was swift and brutal. The monks of Lindisfarne had no warning, no chance to flee or hide their treasures. Kára led her warriors with tactical precision, securing the monastery's perimeter before the main force entered. They met little resistance, just terrified men in robes clutching wooden crosses as if they might offer protection against Norse steel. It was in the monastery's stables that Kára's life changed forever. While her warriors gathered horses to transport their plunder back to the ships, she noticed a separate paddock behind the main stable. Inside stood the most magnificent horse she had ever seen, a stallion with a coat black as a moonless night, save for a single splash of white on his chest that resembled Thor's hammer. Unlike the other horses that cowered or panicked, this one stood tall, defiant, eyes blazing with intelligence and fury. "That one," said a voice behind her in broken Norse. "He is the devil. No man can ride him." Kára turned to find a stable boy, no, a young man, watching her with wary eyes. He was tall and lean, perhaps 20 summers old, with hair the color of wheat fields and eyes as blue as the summer sky. He wore the simple garments of the Northumbrians, now stained with blood from a cut above his eye. "Why do you speak to me instead of running?" she asked, hand resting on her sword hilt. The young man shrugged. "I care for the horses. If I ran, who would protect them from your people?" His courage impressed her. "What is your name?" "Brant Ælfriksson," he replied. "And yours, shield-maiden?" "Kára Leifsdottir." She turned back to the black stallion. "What do you call him?" "Storm Rider. Though mostly we call him Trouble." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. 3 monks have been killed trying to tame him. Kára approached the paddock fence, studying the magnificent creature. He was not born to serve monks. "No," Brant agreed. "He was captured wild from the highlands 2 winters ago. My father," his voice caught. "My father was the only one who could approach him." "And where is your father now?" Brant's eyes hardened. "Dead. Killed by Vikings last summer." Kára felt something shift inside her, a discomfort she quickly suppressed. This was the way of the world, her people raided, others died. She had never before faced the aftermath so directly. "I'm taking the horse," she declared. Brant stepped forward. You cannot. He will kill you. Then it will be a good death. She vaulted the fence in one fluid motion, landing softly in the paddock. The stallion's ears flattened against his head, and he pawed the ground. Wait, Brant called, but Kára was focused solely on Stormrider now. She approached slowly, hands empty and visible. The horse snorted, muscles tensing beneath his glossy coat. Kára began to hum, a song her mother had sung when Kára was small, before illness claimed her. The melody was soft, almost lost in the wind, but the stallion's ears twitched forward. You are magnificent, she murmured in Norse. A warrior, like me. Not meant for plowing fields or carrying fat monks. The horse watched her, nostrils flaring. Kára continued her slow advance until she stood an arm's length away. Then, in one swift movement that startled even Brant, she leaped onto the stallion's back. Stormrider exploded into action. He bucked and reared, twisting his body in ways Kára had never experienced. She clung to his maner, her thighs gripping his sides like iron. Time seemed to blur as horse and woman battled for dominance, neither willing to yield, both refusing to accept defeat. When Stormrider finally stilled, sides heaving and coat dark with sweat, Kára remained on his back. Blood trickled from her nose where the horse's head had struck her during his frenzy, but she smiled through it. Brant stood at the fence, mouth agape. Impossible, he whispered. Kára guided the stallion to the gate with subtle pressure from her legs. Open it, she commanded. Brant hesitated only briefly before complying. As Kára rode past him, their eyes met. Something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits caught in the grinding wheels of fate. He belongs with me, she said softly. I know, Brant replied. But remember, he chose you. He wasn't taken. Before Kára could respond, horns sounded from the monastery courtyard. The signal to withdraw to the ships with their plunder. She nudged Stormrider forward, leaving Brant standing alone amid the destruction of his home. The return journey to their settlement in the fjords of Norway was marked by both celebration and tension. The raid had been successful beyond expectations. Gold, silver, manuscripts, and slaves would make their village prosperous through the coming winter. Yet Leif watched his daughter with concern as she spent every free moment with the black stallion, speaking to it as if it were a person rather than a beast. The horse is possessed by spirits, muttered Gunnar, Leif's most trusted warrior. No animal should have eyes that knowing. Nonsense, Leif replied, though privately he too was unsettled by the bond forming between Kára and the stallion. My daughter has always had a way with animals. Not like this, Gunnar insisted. She speaks to it in their tongue sometimes, the language of the Saxons. This gave Leif pause. You're certain? I've raided their shores for 20 summers. I know their tongue when I hear it. Leif's brow furrowed. Kára had been distracted since the raid, quieter than usual. He had attributed it to the responsibility of leadership, but now he wondered if something else had occurred at Lindisfarne, something she hadn't shared with him. Upon their return, Kára built a separate shelter for Stormrider adjacent to her own dwelling, refusing to house him with the other horses. The village children were forbidden to approach him, as the stallion tolerated no one's touch save Kára's. Each morning before dawn, she would ride him along the shore, returning with salt spray in her hair and a wild light in her eyes that reminded the elders uncomfortably of Freya in her most dangerous aspects. 3 moons passed, and winter's grip tightened on the land. The raid ceased until spring, and the village turned inward, repairing weapons, spinning wool, telling stories around hearth fires. It was during this time that Jarl Håkon announced the Midwinter Games, a tradition that brought together clans from across the region to compete in tests of strength, skill, and courage. You will participate, Leif told Kára as they shared an evening meal. In which events, she asked, though she already knew the answer. The horse race. Your black devil is faster than any mount I've seen. You could bring great honor to our family. Kára nodded, suppressing a smile. She had been training Stormrider for exactly this purpose, teaching him to respond to the lightest touch of her knees, the subtlest shift of her weight. There is something else, her father continued, his expression grave. Jarl Hakon has taken notice of you. He has suggested a marriage alliance between you and his son, Ivo. Kára's spoon clattered against her bowl. Ivo? He's a brute who treats his thralls like animals. He is the Jarl's heir, Leif countered. Such an alliance would elevate our family's standing considerably. I will not be traded like a cow at market, Kára said, rising from her seat. You are nearly 20 winters old. It is time you fulfilled your duty as a woman. My duty? Kára's voice rose. Was it not you who placed a sword in my hand when I was 7? Who taught me to fight, to lead warriors? And now you would have me set aside my shield to warm Ivar's bed and bear his children. Leif stood as well, his patience wearing thin. I allowed you to become a shield-maiden because you showed aptitude for it. But all warriors eventually hang up their weapons, daughter. You cannot raid forever. Watch me, Kára hissed, storming from their home into the bitter cold. Her feet carried her automatically to Stormrider's shelter. The stallion nickered softly as she entered, his breath forming clouds in the frigid air. Kára pressed her forehead against his neck, drawing comfort from his solid warmth. What am I to do? She whispered in Saxon, the language she had been learning secretly from one of the thralls captured in a previous raid. She had been drawn to the tongue ever since her brief encounter with Brant. They would cage me as surely as they would cage you. Stormrider snorted, pawing at the ground. Kára stroked his mane, lost in thought. The midwinter games would bring visitors from far and wide. Perhaps among them would be traders bound for distant shores come spring. Perhaps. Her musings were interrupted by the sound of footsteps crunching through snow. Kára tensed, reaching for the knife at her belt. Peace, shield-maiden, came a familiar voice, speaking in heavily accented Norse. I mean no harm. Brant Ælfriksson stepped into the dim light of the shelter, his fair hair dusted with snowflakes, his face leaner than she remembered. Kára stared in disbelief. How are you here? Her knife remained in her hand. I was taken as a slave during the raid, he explained. Purchased by a merchant who travels between your lands and mine. When I learned his caravan would join the midwinter gathering, I volunteered to tend the horses. You speak our tongue better than before. Necessity is a harsh teacher. His eyes moved to Stormrider, who had approached the fence separating them, ears pricked forward with interest. He remembers me. He remembers everyone, Kára said. Why have you sought me out? For revenge. Brant shook his head. If I wanted vengeance, I would have attempted it months ago, however futile it might have been. Then why? His blue eyes met hers directly. Because I see the same longing in you that I feel in myself. You don't belong here any more than Stormrider belongs in a monastery stable. Kára lowered her knife, unsettled by his perception. You know nothing about me. I know you speak to him in my language, though you have no reason to unless you're learning it deliberately. I know you keep him separate from the village, as you keep part of yourself separate from your people. He gestured to the shelter, built with more care than many human dwellings in the village. And I know you ride alone at dawn, always looking toward the horizon. You've been watching me, she accused, though without heat. Just as you've been watching the trading ships in the harbor, calculating distances, considering possibilities. When Kára remained silent, he continued, there are other ways to live than raiding or being married off to a chieftain's son. Kára stiffened. You've been eavesdropping as well. Your argument with your father carried across the night air. Brant stepped closer to the fence. I came to make you an offer. What could you possibly offer me? Freedom. The word hung between them in the cold air. The merchant I serve is kind but old. His eyesight fails, and he struggles to manage his caravan. He has spoken of retiring after the spring trading season. And this concerns me how. His trading route takes him to Dublin, where Saxons and Norse live side by side in something approaching peace. There are opportunities there for those brave enough to seize them. Kára approached the fence, studying Brant's face for any sign of deception. Why would you help me escape? I am one of those who destroyed your home, Killed your people. Not my people specifically, Brant corrected. And while I won't pretend to have forgotten or forgiven the violence your kind has brought to my shores, I've learned that hatred accomplishes nothing except to bind one to the past. He reached through the fence, slowly, to stroke Stormrider's nose. The stallion allowed the touch, surprising Kára. Besides, Brant continued, I'm not doing this solely for you. I want my freedom as well. And his voice softened. I want to see him run as he was meant to run, not in circles around your village, but across open land. Kára considered his words, temptation warring with suspicion. I would need to win the midwinter race first. The prize is substantial, enough to buy passage wherever I wish to go. Then win it, Brant said simply. No horse here can match Stormrider's speed. And if I decide to take your offer afterward, then meet me at the merchant's camp the night after the games conclude. The caravan departs at first light. He backed away from the fence. Think on it, Kára Leifsdottir. The choice is yours. As he disappeared into the swirling snow, Kára turned to Stormrider, who watched her with those intelligent eyes that had first captured her attention. What say you, my friend? Shall we race for our freedom? The stallion tossed his head, as if in agreement. The day of the midwinter horse race dawned clear and brutally cold. The fjord was frozen solid, providing a natural track that stretched for nearly 2 miles before looping back to the village. Spectators lined the course, stamping their feet against the cold and passing skins of mead to ward off the chill. 20 riders gathered at the starting line, their mounts snorting plumes of steam into the frigid air. Kára sat atop Stormrider, both of them calm amid the chaos. She had braided her red hair tightly against her head and wore her lightest armor, concession enough to her father's concerns about safety. Leif approached before the race began, his expression a mixture of pride and worry. Remember, daughter, this race is about more than just winning. It is about showing Jarl Hakon and his son your worth. Kára bit back the retort that rose to her lips. Instead, she nodded. I understand, father. Good. He squeezed her knee, the closest he ever came to displaying affection. May Thor lend strength to your arm and your horse's legs. As he walked away, Kára caught sight of Brant among the merchant's servants, ostensibly tending to his master's horses. Their eyes met briefly, and he gave an almost imperceptible nod. She returned it, then focused her attention on the Jarl as he moved to start the race. Hakon raised his arm, his voice booming across the ice. Riders! This race tests not only the speed of your horses but your skill as warriors. At the turning point, you must retrieve a flag from the ice. The first to return with their flag intact will be declared the winner. He paused for dramatic effect. May the gods favor the worthy. His arm fell, and the race began. The thunder of hooves on ice was deafening as 20 horses surged forward. Kára held Stormrider back slightly, letting the more aggressive riders take the lead. She had learned during their dawn rides that the stallion's greatest strength was not in the initial sprint but in his stamina and intelligence. The first quarter mile saw 3 riders fall as their mounts lost footing on a particularly slick stretch. Kára guided Stormrider around them, maintaining a steady pace in the middle of the pack. Ahead, she could see Ivar Håkansson leading on his massive grey stallion, a wedding gift from a neighbouring jarl. The thought of being bound to him made her press her heels into Stormrider's sides, urging him to gradually increase speed. As they approached the halfway point, Kára had worked her way into 5th position. The flags, small squares of coloured cloth attached to spears driven into the ice, came into view. Each rider would need to lean down at full gallop to retrieve their flag, a maneuver that required perfect balance and timing. Ivar reached the flags first, snatching his with practiced ease. The second rider was less fortunate, he leaned too far and tumbled from his saddle, causing the riders behind to swerve sharply. In the resulting confusion, Kára guided Stormrider through a narrow gap and accelerated. Now in 3rd position, with only Ivar and another warrior ahead, she focused on the return journey. This was where Stormrider would prove his worth. As they rounded the bend to head back toward the village, Kára leaned low over his neck. Now, she whispered in Saxon. Show them what you truly are. Stormrider responded as if he understood every word. His stride lengthened, his powerful legs eating up the distance between them and the second-place rider. They passed him before the three-quarter mark, leaving only Eva ahead. The Jarl's son glanced back, his face contorting with anger when he saw Kára gaining. He drove his heels viciously into his mount's flanks, drawing blood. The grey horse surged forward, but Kára could see the strain in its movements. With a quarter-mile remaining, Stormrider pulled even with Eva's horse. The two riders locked eyes briefly, his filled with fury, hers with determination. Eva suddenly swung his flag toward Kára, attempting to knock her from her mount. She ducked beneath the blow and retaliated with a sharp elbow to his ribs. "Bitch," he snarled, reaching for her again. But Kára had already urged Stormrider ahead, putting a length between them. The crowd's roar grew deafening as the finish line approached. Stormrider crossed it 3 lengths ahead of Eva's exhausted mount, ears pricked forward in triumph. The celebration was immediate and overwhelming. Village members surrounded Kára as she dismounted, lifting her onto their shoulders. Through the chaos, she caught glimpses of her father's proud face, Jarl Hakon's appraising stare, and Eva's murderous glare. And far at the edge of the crowd, nearly hidden in shadow, Brant watched with a small smile. The victory feast that night was lavish by winter standards. Mead flowed freely, and the skald composed verses praising Kára's riding skill and Stormrider's speed. The prize, a chest containing silver coins, amber, and finely crafted jewelry, sat beside Jarl Hakon's high seat, awaiting formal presentation. When the time came for the prize-giving, Hakon beckoned Kára forward. She knelt before him, as custom dictated. "Rise, Kára Leifsdottir," the Jarl commanded. "You have brought honor to your family and village this day." "Thank you, my Jarl," she responded, eyes appropriately lowered. "Such skill deserves recognition." Hakon gestured to the chest. "The prize is yours, as promised." As Kára reached for the chest, Hakon continued, "And there is more. My son has expressed interest in taking you as his wife." The hall fell silent. Kára froze, her hand still outstretched. "It is a great honor," Hakon said, his tone making clear this was not merely a suggestion. "The wedding will take place at the spring equinox, when the raids begin anew." Kára straightened, forcing herself to meet Hakon's gaze. "My Jarl, I am deeply honored by your son's interest." She chose her words with extreme care. "However, I have pledged myself to the path of the shield-maiden for at least another year. I made this oath to Freya herself after my first raid." Murmurs swept through the hall. Invoking a goddess was a serious matter. Hakon's eyes narrowed. "I was not informed of this oath." "It was a private matter, between myself and the goddess," Kára replied. "To break such an oath would surely bring misfortune to any marriage." Leif stepped forward, clearly torn between pride in his daughter's cleverness and fear of offending the Jarl. "Perhaps a compromise, my Jarl. Let the betrothal be announced tonight, with the wedding to follow next year when my daughter's oath is fulfilled." Hakon considered this, stroking his grey-streaked beard. Finally, he nodded. "A sensible solution. The betrothal will be formalized tonight, the wedding next spring." He turned to his son. "Is this acceptable to you, Eva?" Eva's eyes were cold as he stared at Kára. "As you wish, father. I can wait to claim what is mine." The feast resumed, though the atmosphere had changed. Kára accepted congratulations for both her victory and her betrothal with the same fixed smile. Throughout the evening, she felt Eva's gaze following her movements, calculating and possessive. When she finally retired to her dwelling, the prize chest securely stored beneath her sleeping platform, Kára sat awake long into the night. Her decision was made. She would not be in the village when spring arrived. The following day passed in a blur of preparations. Kára carefully selected items from the prize chest, taking only what was most valuable and easily transported. She gathered provisions that wouldn't be immediately missed and hid them in Stormrider's shelter. As darkness fell, she made a show of retiring early, complaining of exhaustion from the previous day's events. Once inside her dwelling, she changed into her warmest clothes, strapped her sword to her hip, and secured a small pack of essentials. Then she slipped out the back, using the shadows and her intimate knowledge of the village layout to avoid being seen. At Stormrider's shelter, she quickly saddled him and attached her provisions. The stallion seemed to sense the importance of silence, standing perfectly still as she worked. "One last journey together through this village," she whispered to him. "After tonight, we'll never look back." Leading Stormrider by the reins, Kára moved carefully toward the edge of the village. The merchant caravan was camped on the southern outskirts, close enough to trade but far enough to maintain separation between the foreigners and the Norse. She had almost reached the perimeter when a voice called out from the darkness. "Going somewhere, daughter?" Leif stepped into view, blocking her path. He wore no armor, but his hand rested on his sword hilt. Kára's heart sank. "Father! I know you too well, Kára. I saw the look in your eyes when Hakon announced the betrothal." He glanced at her packed saddle. "Where do you think you're going?" "Away from here," she answered truthfully. "I cannot marry Ivo." "I will not." "You would dishonor our family? Bring Hakon's wrath down upon us." Leif's voice was tight with anger and something else, hurt. "After everything I've done for you, everything I've allowed you to become, this is how you repay me." "Allowed me?" Kára's own anger flared. "You speak as if my life is yours to direct, as if I'm a ship you can steer wherever you please. You are my daughter. I am a person. With my own desires, my own dreams." She gestured to the village behind them. "This life, raiding, fighting, the endless cycle of violence and revenge, it's not what I want anymore." Leif stared at her, his expression unreadable in the darkness. "And what do you want?" The question caught her off guard. In all their years together, he had never asked her that. "I want to see what lies beyond our shores," she said finally. "I want to build something instead of destroying. I want to choose my own path, make my own mistakes." She met his gaze directly. "I want freedom." For a long moment, neither spoke. Then Leif sighed, suddenly looking much older than his years. "The Saxon boy," he said. "The one who tends the merchant's horses. He's part of this, isn't he?" Kára nodded, seeing no point in denying it. "Do you love him?" I don't know," she answered honestly. "But I respect him. And I believe he respects me." Leif was silent again, his internal struggle visible on his face. Finally, he stepped aside. "Go, then," he said gruffly. "Before I change my mind." Kára stood frozen in surprise. "You're letting me leave? Your mother would haunt my dreams forever if I forced you into a marriage you despise." A sad smile crossed his face. "She was as stubborn as you know. Perhaps more so." Impulsively, Kára embraced her father. After a moment's hesitation, his arms encircled her. "I may not understand your choice," he murmured into her hair, "but I recognize the fire in your spirit. It would be wrong to extinguish it." "Thank you," she whispered. He released her, stepping back. "Take this." He removed a silver arm ring from his wrist, an heirloom passed down through generations. "So you remember where you come from, even as you forge your own path." Kára accepted the ring, throat tight with emotion. "I will never forget. Now go, quickly. I'll tell them you left at dawn. It should give you enough of a head start." With a final nod of gratitude, Kára mounted Stormrider and urged him forward into the night. The merchant camp was mostly dark when she arrived, with only a few fires still burning. She dismounted at the edge, leading Stormrider quietly between the tents until she spotted Brant tending to the horses. He looked up at her approach, relief washing over his features. "You came. Did you doubt I would? Until this moment?" "Yes." He finished securing a harness, then turned to face her fully. "The caravan leaves at first light. The old merchant believes you're joining us as a hired guard. I may have exaggerated your enthusiasm for protecting trading caravans. Kára smiled despite her nervousness. Clever. Necessary. Brant nodded toward the village. Were you seen? Only by my father. At Brant's alarmed expression, she added, he won't stop us. He gave us his blessing, in his way. Brant seemed skeptical but nodded. Rest while you can. The journey to Dublin is long, and not without dangers. I'm not afraid of danger, Kára said, leading Stormrider to an empty spot among the merchant's horses. I know. Brant's voice softened. That's one of the reasons He stopped, looking away. One of the reasons you what? She prompted. He met her gaze again, his eyes reflecting the distant firelight. One of the reasons I believe this mad plan might actually work. Kára sensed he'd been about to say something else, but she didn't press. There would be time for such conversations in the days ahead. For now, it was enough that they were embarking on this journey together, the shield-maiden, the stable boy, and the wild horse that had brought them together. Spring was blooming in Dublin when the merchant caravan finally arrived. The journey had been arduous, crossing stormy seas, navigating unfamiliar lands, and twice defending against bandits who saw the caravan as easy prey. They'd learned much about each other in that time. Brant had discovered Kára's surprising love of poetry and her talent for mimicking bird calls. Kára had learned of Brant's gift for languages and his dream of someday building ships that could sail farther than any before. And they had both discovered the powerful current that pulled them toward each other, a force as undeniable as the tide, yet as gentle as morning mist. Their first kiss had come during a storm at sea, when death seemed certain and truths could no longer be hidden. Their first night together was spent beneath stars in a meadow, with Stormrider keeping watch nearby. Dublin proved to be everything Brant had promised, a place where Norse and Saxon, Irish and Dane all mingled in a chaotic but vibrant community. With the silver from her prize, Kára purchased a small plot of land on the outskirts of the settlement, where Stormrider could run freely. Brant, freed from servitude by the aging merchant who had grown fond of him, used his knowledge of horses and his gift for languages to establish himself as a translator and horse trainer. Together, they built a life neither could have imagined a year earlier. Kára still carried her sword and still rode Stormrider like the wind, but now she did so with joy rather than fury. Brant still spoke softly to horses, but now he also spoke words of love to the red-haired shield-maiden who had once been his enemy. It was during the Midsummer Festival, nearly a year after their escape, that Kára heard news from her homeland. Norse traders had arrived with tales of Jarl Hakon's wrath upon discovering her flight, and of Ivar's humiliation. They spoke too of Leif Thorkelson, who had defended his daughter's honor in single combat against a man who called her coward. Is he alive? Kára had asked, heart in her throat. Aye, the trader confirmed. Wounded, but healing when we left. He sent something for you, if we should find you. He handed her a small wooden carving of a horse, remarkably similar to Stormrider. Attached to it was a message rune that simply read, "Be free." That night, as she and Brant sat outside their dwelling watching Stormrider graze in the moonlight, Kára felt a sense of peace she had never known in the fjords of her birth. Do you ever regret it? Brant asked, his arm around her shoulders. Leaving everything you knew. Kára considered the question, turning the wooden horse in her fingers. No, she said finally. I miss my father. I miss some aspects of my former life. But regret? Never. She leaned against him. What about you? Do you regret joining your fate to mine? My fate joined with yours the moment you rode Stormrider out of that paddock, he replied, pressing a kiss to her temple. Everything since has simply been us discovering what that means. In the meadow, Stormrider raised his head, his silhouette majestic against the night sky. He had carried them across boundaries of land and culture, across the divisions of hatred and history. In finding freedom for himself, he had somehow granted it to them as well. There's a race next month, Kára said suddenly. Around the bay and back. The prize is enough silver to buy that cove you've been eyeing for your shipbuilding. Brant laughed. Always looking for the next race to win, aren't you? Always looking for the next horizon, she corrected. But now I look for it with you beside me. As if hearing his cue, Storm Rider trotted over to them, nudging Brant's shoulder with his nose. The once wild stallion had grown surprisingly affectionate toward the man, though he still allowed no one but Kára to ride him. "What do you think, old friend?" Brant asked the horse. "One more race." Storm Rider snorted, pawing the ground impatiently. Kára smiled. "I think that's a yes." Together, the three figures stood silhouetted against the rising moon, the shield-maiden who had found purpose beyond battle, the stable boy who had found courage beyond survival, and the wild horse who had found family beyond freedom. Their story, born in violence and nurtured in courage, had become something new and beautiful, a saga worthy of the Skalds, though it would never be sung in the halls of the Northmen. It was a different kind of victory than any Kára had imagined when she stood at her father's ship all those months ago, watching the monastery shoreline approach. A victory not of conquest, but of connection. Not of domination, but of harmony. And in the end, it was the only victory that truly mattered.